Hi guys, welcome back to another video. I don't know about you, but 2022 seems to be using me as its punching bag. Then again, the beginning of any year is always hectic. Anyway, today I want to start talking about negotiation, specifically about what you can use as leverage when asking for a higher rate. Ready? Let's go! Now, before I get into the topic of the day, I want to quickly mention something. Many of you have been reaching out to me saying that once you apply for that MC and DOT number, you start getting a ton of calls. And let me tell you, this is normal. Once you apply for your MC number and your DOT number, everyone starts calling you, offering you their services. And sometimes the calls can be threatening.
You are not compliant. You will lose your authority and die a painful death.
Don't listen to them. They're just trying to sell you a service. Always ask whether they're a government agency, and if they say no, hang up mid-sentence. That's what I do. Anyway, back to leverage and negotiation. Now, in today's market, you really don't need leverage in order to negotiate that higher rate. Shout out to Haley, by the way. If you're still on the fence about whether to start in this industry or not, this is what negotiations look like today. Hi there, calling about your Sparks Nevada to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Yep, it's ready now and we have $2,000 in it.
Got it. I would need $3,500.
But wait, why? It's only 500 miles and that's like $1,500 over what we're offering.
Because I want it.
Okay, fine.
Actually, hold on. I think there's a better load that just...
No. I'll give you $4,000 and my firstborn. Just take the load.
Okay, if you insist. Okay, yes, this is an exaggerated version, but it's completely based on the truth of today. As I always say, today's market is doing crazy things, but at some point the market will turn and return to normal, at which point you will need leverage to actually justify the higher rate that you're asking for. So let's go through your leverage options. Number 1, commodity type. The rate on a load is often the direct reflection of the commodity type that's being transported. So usually you will need to have a general idea of the value of the load. For example, a dry van being offered a load of electronics can charge a higher rate than a dry van being offered a load of empty pallets. This is because electronics are valued higher than a load of empty pallets. So what does this mean? If a claim arises, your insurance will have to pay more for that load of electronics than for that load of empty pallets, which means you are taking on more risk. And more risk means higher rates. Same principle applies for a reefer. A load of medicine is valued higher than a load of refrigerated pet food, so you can charge a higher rate for that medicine load. Another thing to consider is the demand for a particular product, and I'm not talking about consumer demand here. I'm talking about how willing is a carrier to actually transport a certain commodity. For example, a dry van operator might not be as excited about transporting bales of grass as he is about transporting water bottles. Why? Well, look here. The bales of grass will leave a ton of debris in the trailer, which means the trailer will have to be cleaned out or washed out, whereas the load of water bottles is completely clean and neat. Now, reefer carriers will often shy away from transporting loads like fresh poultry because chicken juices leak everywhere and they smell. So what happens once you deliver the load? You have to wash out your trailer, sometimes several times, to get rid of that awful smell. So what happens when multiple carriers refuse to transport a particular commodity type? Well, brokers and shippers start getting panicked and the rate starts going up. So my advice, take that unpopular load and make that money. Finally, you have to consider the cost of transportation for a particular load. For example, a reefer carrier transporting a load of ice cream can charge higher than a reefer carrier transporting a load of some fresh produce. Why? Because ice cream has to be kept at -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Produce has to be kept between 30 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. In other words, with the load of ice cream, the reefer unit will be working that much harder because it has to keep that temperature down at -20, especially in summer months. And that means that that reefer unit is consuming more fuel. Now, if you're a dry van or a flatbed operator, you should ask for a higher rate when the load is, for example, 45 or 46,000 pounds instead of 25,000 pounds. Why? Because the heavier the load, the more fuel your truck will consume. So basically, the bigger the cost to you and your truck, the more you should charge on that load rate. Number 2, facilities. When booking a load, you should make it a point to ask what kind of facility this load is picking up from and what kind of facility it's delivering to. Now remember, you will actually not know the exact location of pickup and delivery until you agree to that load and get the rate confirmation. However, you should still ask about the general facility type before you actually agree to a load. If, for example, you hear that the facility is a farm or a distribution center, be prepared for longer wait times. In my experience, farms are the worst. You arrive by your scheduled appointment time and then you realize they haven't even collected the product from the field yet.
Oh, you're here to pick up the load of watermelons? Sorry, they're still growing in the field.
My point is, if the facility you're picking up from or delivering to is notorious for longer wait times, you can use that as leverage when asking for a higher rate. Remember, your time costs money, so while you're sitting around and waiting to get loaded or unloaded, you're losing that money. Number 3, route or route. Now this is really important. You have to be aware of your surroundings, specifically weather, when booking loads. A few days ago, I was looking for a load near Portland, Oregon, and there were a ton of loads going out of Hermiston, Oregon, which is to the east of Portland. Now to get to Hermiston, Oregon from Portland, the driver would have to pass a ton of frozen rain and snowstorms. Now, if I didn't care about my team, I would be completely justified in asking for an astronomically high rate to pick up from Hermiston, Oregon, because of all that weather there. But for me, the most important thing is safety. So we ended up picking a load directly from Portland, Oregon, and delivering it to Sparks, Nevada.
No snow, no frozen rain, clean and easy.
So if you see that you're passing some crazy weather on the way and you're okay with taking that risk, ask for that higher rate. After all, what is your safety worth? Another thing to consider is stops. How many pickups and drop-offs does the load have? Now, many carriers will charge a flat rate for every extra stop. I don't. I play it by ear, but I always use that as leverage to negotiate a higher rate. Finally, there is transit time. Let's say you're picking up a load from Lompoc, California and delivering it to Fallon, Nevada the next day. Now the distance is 553 miles and you see that the load pays $1,300. Pretty good, right? But what if that same load is picking up on Friday and delivering on Monday morning because the receiver doesn't work on the weekend? Then instead of making $1,300 in one day, you are now making $433 per day. Pretty crappy, if I do say so myself. So the longer the transit time, the more money you should ask for. Number 4, additional work. You will sometimes see loads that require driver work. Now, what this means is that the driver will have to assist in loading or unloading the trailer, usually using a pallet jack or some tool that is provided at the facility. When driver work is involved, you have to ask for a higher rate. If you're an owner-operator working for yourself, then that rate will compensate you for your time and effort. If you're a carrier who hires drivers, you should be paying them extra for any driver work involved load. In either case, this is a completely justified reason for asking for that higher rate. Number 5, final destination. When booking a load, you need to be aware of the next load you will book. After all, you are making money when your wheels are turning. So you have to consider where your current load delivers to. If you, for example, book a load from New Mexico to California, the broker will most likely give you a crappy rate and you will have to accept it. Why? Because number 1, there are a limited amount of loads from New Mexico, and number 2, you will be able to grab a stellar load out of California that will compensate for that crappy rate out of New Mexico. Now, let's switch the origin and destination. If you're booking a load from California delivering into New Mexico, the first sentence that should come out of your mouth when negotiating is,
"Yeah, I will need a higher higher rate because there are just no loads in New Mexico and I'll have to deadhead out of there.
That alone will, most of the time, get you that higher rate. So remember, when you're booking a load that delivers to a place that is notorious for a lack of freight, always ask for a higher rate. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you guys learned something new that will help you in negotiating, and I will see you guys in the next video.